Hey everyone, Piano Man Chuck here, and that was my original song, Forgotten, and it really sounded good on this, right? In this particular case, I had it set up as a split. You can see my split right here, that's my split point, and I had it set up so that the bottom end is controlled with a Grand Imperial piano, which is what Nord calls it, which is actually a Bosendorfer 290. And the reason I chose that for the bottom end is because it has such a powerful bottom end sound. It specializes in that. That's why I picked that piano for this part of the split. For the upper part of the split, I'm using what Nord calls a white grand, which in reality is a Steinway B. It is clean. It is crisp. That's why I'm using that on the upper half. So you combine the two together, you've got the best of both worlds. You've got a Bosendorfer on the bottom for that deep bass, and you've got the Steinway B on the top for that crisp, clear sound. Even splitting it is different here than it is on others. The reason it's different is because now I've got, like I said, two pianos set up. The Bosendorfer on selection A and the Steinway B on selection B. So not only do I have independent controls of the volume right there at my fingertips, but this new Nordgrand 2 model can support, you ready for this? 6 independent effects per channel. Per channel. That is so great. So I can set up the piano with the Bosendorfer with up to 6 different effects on that particular, from the bass, from the left of the split point down. And I can set up another 6 different separate unique effects different from the first one for the Steinway B, which is to the right of the split point. So those independent effects are Mod 1, Mod 2, Equalizer, Amp, Compressor, and Delay. And to put that even farther, you can call it 6.5, maybe even 7, global reverb. They're calling it global because whatever you do is going to affect everything, but you can actually have that separate, because if you do it that way, you can determine how much of what piano is being sent to the reverb. And I know I'm spending a lot of the time on this. Believe me, I will get to the review where everything I compare here is different from the original Nordgrand. But this is such a fascinating concept here. It's so different. It allows me to actually create my own unique piano. You know how when you listen to a guitar, Jimi Hendrix has his own separate guitar sound, indistinguishable from anybody else. You know right away it's Hendrix. The same thing with Queen, and the same thing with a bunch of other groups. Well, you don't have that with piano until now. Now you can establish your own unique, independent piano sound where there's no mistaking it. It is you. You own that sound. That is what's so incredible about this. And I just wanted to get that out of the way now before I got into the review. That is just so cool. All right, so the original Nordgrand and this, the Nordgrand 2, they have the same Kawai key action, which Kawai calls it the RH3, and you can find it in some of their instruments like the ES8 or the MP7 SE and some others. And it is a fantastic key action. RH3, which is called the RHN here, RH, responsive hammer, Nord. Yes, it's the same as the Nord, the original Nordgrand, but there's some differences. Mark down over here what those differences are. First of all, the keypad and construction has been improved in a few different ways. The keyboard itself has been updated from Kawai with improved damping for reduced mechanical noise and improved feel overall. It's still the same mechanical construction keyboard model as on the Nord Grand in other respects, but the chassis on the Nord Grand 2 has also improved damping and components added for further stabilizing the construction. This was also done for reduced mechanical noise, improved bottom feel, which is really cool, and for an enjoyable playing experience overall. And to me, it's a slightly heavier action than you had on the Nord Grand, the original one, which is good. Now, what I just said amounts to a quieter keyboard. Now, keep in mind, this mic here is pretty close to the keys. So if you wanted to hear what this is like, you basically going to have to put your ear down to the keyboard at this level. So I am going to turn the volume down so that you can just hear the keyboard. You can barely hear it, and that makes it one of the quietest keyboards around. I love it. So you can't get much better than that. And if you'll notice here, I'm looking at my laptop computer, which is resting here on the Nord Grand 2. I also have a computer keyboard resting here, as well as a mouse and my phone. Compared with the Nord Grand, this is even less of a space. Even though it's less, you can see I still have these 4 things on here. I could probably put more on here. But with the laptop, yeah, I have to have it at an angle. Otherwise, there's going to be too much hanging off of either the front or the rear end. And you don't want it hanging off of the front because it's going to cover up some of the controls here. Now, some of the improvements or changes that they did. The slope here between the top board and the keys, it's a much more gradual slope, which is really good because on the original Nord Grand one, it was more of a steep slope. So steep that when I was playing keys, I was actually hitting some of the controls. And that turned out to be, quite a problem. So Nord actually put in a switch there to turn off the control panel altogether so that when you're playing, no matter what keys, no matter what switches or anything on the panel that you hit, it would have no effect. The slope is so much more gradual that you don't need that anymore. There's no way I'm playing, especially into the keys, where I'm going to be hitting any of the controls on the panel. So that is really cool. And because of that, the way they set this up is actually they have more room here to have the buttons and knobs and sliders. So it's more readable. Really, really nice. I love that. But because of that, you have less room here, from here to here, to set things on this board with. On the original Nord Grand, you had 6.5 inches of usable space from front to back that was a flat wood that you can put stuff on. And that really wasn't much room at all. On this one, you have 5 3/4 inches, which is a full 3/4 inches, almost an inch, a full 3/4 of an inch less. But yet, as you can see here, I've got my laptop, my computer keyboard, my mouse, and my phone here. So I still have room here, and it's better than most other keyboards where you don't have really any room at all to put anything. Now, as far as the differences here. With the original Nord Grand, you had 400 memory locations. Now you have 432. Now, here's the cool thing. The pedal inputs. Now you can have Nord's new triple pedal 2, which amazingly, is included with this purchase, and it should be because it's like a $400 or $500 pedal. It is so good. Now, that pedal, it's a triple pedal system. It says Nord on it, but actually it is the same thing as Kawai's triple pedal system, and it would be the Kawai GFP3. Now, in the sustain pedal, this is actually controlled optically. It's an optical pedal, which is so much more accurate than the older way, which is basically electrical, but it is such a difference. I would compel you to go to your nearest music retailer just to try that out because it is so much different. You have so much more control, it's so much more responsive. On the original Nord Grand, even though they included a triple pedal, the sustain pedal was electrical. So basically a variable potentiometer with your foot. And on the original Nord Grand, the left and middle pedals were basically on-off switches. On this one, both of these are CC or continuous controller pedals, so you could actually use them if you wanted to as an expression pedal or any other thing like that. So very, very cool. And in fact, because this Nord Triple Pedal 2 is so different, it actually has a new plug at the end and a unique jack at this end. So only that can be plugged into this. Yes, you can still use the original triple pedal. It's not going to go into the unique new jack, but it will give you all the functions that the original Nord Grand had. Now, the original Nord Grand, you had one piano and one sample synth that you could basically layer together or choose from, so you could play one or the other or both layered together. This is basically different. You now have two different pianos that you can choose from and two different sample synth that you can choose from, and I believe there's like something like 248 different sample synth samples that you can choose from. So it's not just a piano like a lot of people think. It is actually a full-blown instrument where you have 248 unique sounds that are different than what the piano section alone offers you. And the piano section alone, you can see over here, offers you grand, upright pianos, electric pianos, clavinets, digital pianos, and miscellaneous pianos. So it's a lot more than just piano. Now, in the original Nord Grand, because you had one and one, basically you were controlling each one separately. On this one, they borrowed a page from the Nord Stage 4, where you have two different piano selections, but you have two faders here for each one. So unlike the Nord Piano 5, which came between the Nord Grand and this Nord Grand 2, where you actually also had two, you had to switch between A and B. Here you've got A and B pianos right together here. So I can actually use one hand to lower the volume while I'm raising the volume on another one. You could not do that on the Nord Piano 5. You had to adjust the volume on one, switch over to the next, and adjust the volume there. Here I've got complete control of each one simultaneously. That is so cool. And like I said, you can layer these together, and you could also layer two more from the sample synth section, so you have a total of four that you're layering together, or you can set it up so that you can have it from the left and right of the split point with different instruments on each. I chose, as I mentioned, to have a different piano to the left of the split point than I do to the right of the split point. That is so cool. And the same thing with the sample synth section. I can have two different layers instead of one, as with the original Nord Grand, and I can layer them together, or I can have a split point set where, different instrument on the left of the split point, different on the right. And of course, you can change the split point. And what's so great about Nords with their split points is you can see where the split point is in a dark venue. It's lit right here. And if I want to change that split point, I just basically hold this and move this potentiometer, and you can see where the split points are. Yes, they're predetermined split points, but it is so nice to have it where you can actually see in a dark venue where your split point is. I can't tell you how helpful that has been to me in my performances with a band in a dark venue. And as I said, two piano engines separate, two sample synth engines separate and unique. You can do basically what I told you, but there's going to be those that are going to say, well, I can do the same thing with my other Nord, with my Nord Piano 5. Not quite. And again, as I explained, the 6 different effects plus reverb for each of your choices. And you've got 2 different piano choices and 2 different sample synth choices. So basically, if you're using all 4, you got 24 different unique sound effects that you can apply to that, plus reverb, which can be global, or you can choose how much to send to that reverb for each one of these. Now, what else is different? I use live mode a lot, and it used to be 5 different live mode selections with the Nord Grand, the original. Now you have 6. And speaking of that original, that slope, that more gradual slope that I showed you, basically now the buttons, knobs, and faders are now 3 inches high by 33.5 inches wide, instead of only 2.5 inches high by only 30 inches wide. So basically, it's bigger, it's spread out more, but it is so much more well laid out and much more easily readable that it is so much welcome to me that I just love it. Now, as far as the effects section, the effects mod 1 over here, it adds pan 1 soft and pan 2 hard, so that you can pan it from left to right, soft or hard, which is really cool. Also has a really cool spin effect, and I showed that on the Nord Stage 4, which is really cool. I may get to that later on in the video. Right now I'm just going to tell you what the differences are in the effects sections. Now, the effects mod 2, you got mod 1, mod 2 sections. The mod 2 section adds a phaser 2, a chorus 2, and stereo/mono options. Now the amplifier simulations, you've got twin, JC, and small, each with alternate tone options, and that's basically the alt tone button. So basically, if you chose something, let's say you're doing, and you chose a twin amplifier, you got that distortion and all that hooked up. If you press the Alt, and we take the Alt off, on, off. So for any setting you have in that amp section, you can change it basically by choosing the alt tone. And that's so cool because you don't know what to expect and it picks something for you. It is really cool. Now the equalizer, and I'm sure most people out here are going to be using EQ. If nothing else, you will be using EQ. And the cool thing about that, it is per layer, or it can be global. You can use it so that it's global, and whatever you set the EQ to, it's going to affect every instrument you chose. But if you really want to tailor it, you can tailor it such that each of your 4 chosen instruments has their own EQ. How cool is that? I have not seen that done in another instrument before. That is cool. Now the delay is now master clock syncable, or you can have tap tempo where you can choose, you can just tap what your tempo will be and it will go ahead and follow that. You can have ping pong. You can also set it for a global option. And now you have feedback filters as well as flam. You also now have a stereo compressor per layer. How cool is that? Per layer, or you can make it global. And like I mentioned before, reverb is global, but you can make it such that each individual instrument can send its own amount of how much you want for reverb. So basically, if you don't use the global option, you can actually set how much reverb you want for each instrument. And that is cool because if you think about it, that actually adds a 7th unique effect for each one of the selected sounds that you chose. In addition to that, Reverb also has new stuff too. The Reverb now has a spring action. It has a booth. It has room, stage, hall, and cathedral, as well as a pre-delay, which you didn't have before, chorale, and bright and dark modes. So basically, I've got stage right now. And if you choose something else, and like, let's say cathedral, that is such a filling amount of reverb because you've got a cathedral, the sound is bouncing all over the place. Listen to that. And you can adjust cathedral all the way down from this to that. Now, you can also go ahead and activate chorale. You also have a bright mode and a dark mode. Hear the difference? And you now have pre-delay. And that is just cathedral. You have basically spring, booth, room, stage, hall, and cathedral. If I go ahead and choose spring, which is one of their new effects, listen to this. That's at almost full. Here's full. And here's almost nothing, and everything in between. Then you have booth. We have almost nothing. It's like being in a booth. But you can increase the amount. So that's really cool. So room. And stage, of course. That's probably what I use a lot. Stage and hall. Okay. So Reverb alone, they made a lot of improvements with that. Now getting back to the very beginning where you heard what I was playing. Oh, actually, let's turn off the pre-delay. This is what I was playing in the beginning here. Okay, and I showed you that it was a piano, the Bosendorfer to the left of the split point, and the Steinway B to the right. That's with a split point. And again, I can set the split point any number of places I want to. But what I also wanted to show you is if I take the split point off, now I have a layer. So I've got the Bosendorfer and the Steinway layered on top of each other. Listen to the difference. As opposed to separately, Bosendorfer to the left of the split point, Steinway to the right. Sounds cleaner, but it sounds different. So you can create pretty much your own unique sound no matter what you do, whether it's layered or whether it's a split point with two pianos different from the other to the left and to the right of the split point. So let me show you again. Let's turn off the Steinway. This is just the Bosendorfer, and it's across the whole keyboard with no split. Okay. Let's do the Steinway B across the whole keyboard. No other instrument, no splits. Both together, layered. And with a split. So I've showed you 4 different ways of using 2 different pianos. One is with one piano by itself, the other is the other piano by itself. The third is both layered together, and the fourth is as a split, where you have one to the left of the split point and one to the right. That is so cool, and to me, as a pianist, is one of the best features available to me. And I didn't even get to the sample synth sounds yet, because, that's, as a pianist, I'm going to show you what the piano stuff can do. But with the sample synth, you can do a lot of the stuff that you can do with the Nord Stage 4. Not quite all that stuff, but pretty close. And the way they call this the sample synth because basically you're playing samples. And granted, the piano section is also samples. But the sample section, sample synth, the music that you're playing or the sound choices that you make are everything that's not piano. You've got guitars and percussion and horns or reeds and that kind of stuff. So let's turn off the piano section altogether and start with the sample synth. And what you're hearing here is a brand new thing that they've added. This is the Spitfire String Quintet. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Now that Spitfire string quartet is an example of what you are going to be able to get in the future. I mean, it's available now, but it wasn't a few months ago. This is brand new. And when you get a Nord instrument, you're going to be getting a way of getting new instruments for life, or at least for the life of that product. You're always going to have new pianos coming out, which you can get and download, and basically everything else that's new. Now, the cool thing about this is before this version came out, the Nord Grand 2, they had what they call Sound Manager, which is a software app runs on your computer, on your PC or your laptop. And basically, it was so cool because you went onto the Nord's website and you were able to go ahead and hear what some of these sounds were like, playing them on their website. If you like something, you downloaded it, and when you're finished with all the downloads, then you go back and you fire up the Nord Sound Manager and point to the download section where you downloaded all these files, and you can upload that to your Nord. And that was so cool. But they made that even better now, because now you don't even have to go to the Nord website. You just fire up the Sound Manager software. And now you can, within that software, directly load from the Nord website directly onto your Nord instrument. How cool is that? I have not seen that done before. That is really cool. It saves you a step, multiple steps, actually. You don't have to download anymore. You don't have to go to a certain file directory and then from there do all that stuff. No, directly from the website to your instrument. How cool is that? I have had this keyboard for a couple of months now, and I keep wanting to do the reviews, and I'm finally doing it now. But the reason I took so long to actually do the review is every time I sat down and turned this on, I could not help myself. I could not stop playing. It was that good. And if you're a pianist and you have this at home, I'm telling you, you turn this on, you start playing, you're not going to want to stop. Maybe your fingers or your arms are going to get tired or whatever. I don't have that problem. I've been playing all my life, so I'm used to that. But I can tell you, it is so good that the instrument practically plays itself. And what I mean by that is, of course, it doesn't play itself. You're playing it. But what I mean by that is you are not fighting the keys anymore. You don't have to fight to make something louder or softer or whatever. You just feel it. Anything you want to play, a little louder, a little softer. There's so much little effort that you have to do, which is why I say it's almost like the keyboard playing itself. So basically, the thoughts in my mind about what I want to play transferred to my fingers. I don't have to subconsciously compensate for, oh, I got to play a little louder here on this side or a little softer here or anything like that. No more compensation. Basically, a true implementation of the finger to ear experience. Whatever you want to play, you will play with little effort. I mean, of course, you're going to need to know what you're doing in terms of how to play stuff, but once you have that mastered, it's so easy to play. It just comes. And that's what I love about it. Now, this is perfect for the studio because, it weighs quite a bit. And also with the wood and everything, I'm not sure if you want to go ahead and transport this to your gigs and expose the wood to things like drinks and maybe dents and all that. But I can tell you one thing. If I didn't have a Nord Stage 4 right now, this would be the keyboard of my choosing. Nord kind of, since they had the Nord Grand 1, they've kind of alternated Nord Grand 1, and then they had the Nord Piano 5, which gave you 2 pianos, 2 sample synths, just like this, except you had to switch from an A section to a B section. Here you don't have to do it. It's right in front of you. Everything is laid out. I can actually control the volume of each one with 2 fingers. I can raise one, lower the other at the same time. You couldn't do that on the Nord Piano 5, which had more features than the Nord Grand. You couldn't do that on the Nord Piano 5 since you had to switch from one to the other. Anyway, there's so much more to this instrument, and I would love to show you all the other features, especially in the effects section. But for now, let's get out of live section. And we can go here to different things. The classic whirly. String quartet. Royal pad. I mean, there's so much here I can do. That would be probably the subject material of a whole completely new video. But right now, I just wanted to get out to you what the differences were and how easy this is to play and all the options available to you and all the different effects that you can use per sound selection. Oh my God, that is so cool. And I'm sure there's a lot more stuff that I missed, but these are the main things that I wanted to get out to you. And there's just so much here. I encourage you to get to your music retailer and try this out. You won't be sorry. In fact, you might have to be pried away from the piano when they close their doors because it's the end of their business hours. Anyway, I hope this has been educational to you and that you learned something. Piano Man Chuck, peace out. Thanks for watching.